In the latest episode of Sword of the Demon Hunter, the show returns to form to what we saw in the first two episodes after having a bit of a long time of seeming like it was on a downward spiral. So, getting to the recap. We see Natsuko's home, and Jinya is a little bit surprised at first. His mom is very polite despite Jinya seeing himself as a lowly Ronin, and pretty much the main reason why his mom is so nice is because Natsuko is so happy now, or at least a little bit more upbeat, and while she doesn't know, that's because Jinya is enabling or helping Natsuko with trying to discover what happened to his brother. Ignorance is great for her, and it allows her to just be happy for her son. And after having a short conversation, Jinya says for Natsuko to go off to his brother's room, and Jinya uses his invisibility powers that he inherited so that he can maybe see if something triggers, and it does. This leads to us finding a little demon girl who over 200 years ago lost both of her parents in a fire, and that trauma somehow made her into a demon. And unlike what we saw in the last episode with Hatsu, she didn't become like the type of demon we usually see where it's something kind of monstrous. All that happened was she developed powers, and that allowed her to create what is called the Garden of Happiness. Pretty much all this does is create a loop in time where she can still see her parents, but unfortunately her parents aren't live and moving around. They seem to be stuck in some type of memory she had, and somehow, some way, Natsuko's brother Saranaga, he ended up in this weird world, and from what we're told, he stayed there for quite a long time, and he didn't die there. But what happened to him originally wasn't revealed, but just knowing that he existed and that confirmation that it did happen, that his brother was alive at one time, that seems to be enough for Natsuko to let it go and move on with his life. Jinya, on the other hand, he doesn't let the case end just with the confirmation that Sandagan at one time did actually live. He returns to Ofu and her father's restaurant, and as he's thinking about everything, it dawns on him, and Ofu's father reveals that he is Sararanga. Ofu is that little girl who is now similar to Suzune, has grown up either by her own power or strong will. And you may wonder, why exactly did he decide not to reveal to his brother that he is who he is? And from what we're told, well, it's only been a month in our world. It's been about 20 years in the world of Ofu's old place in the Garden of Happiness. So that's why he looks the way he does. And it seems that Saranga, he doesn't really necessarily have the desire to go back to his old life, try to convince his mother and everybody of who he is and go for all that. Never mind. It seems he feels like his brother doesn't need him as much as he used to, and he'd rather live out this new life as Ofu's father, owning this little shop that may not be doing well, but it makes him happy. And with that, Jinya doesn't decide to push them at it much anymore. In fact, kind of flipping the tables, or turning the tables rather, they also reveal, Ofu and Saranga, they reveal that they knew that Jinya was a demon, and he's a little taken aback by that, since he seemingly thought that he was hiding it well. But because Ofu's a demon, because Saranga's lived, at least in Ofu's world, 20 years with a demon, they were both able to sense it. And at the end of all this, even though Jinya has noted that one of his purposes in life is to hunt down demons, he makes it clear that he's not going to hunt down Ofu and take her out. And with that, it seems that maybe he's reached a bit of a turning point in his life regarding what his true purpose is, and that it might be beyond hunting down demons. Now, getting to the review section, I have to admit, the reveal and everything that went on when it came to Ofu's situation, and in extension also Natsuko's situation, it did get me a little bit emotional. And I wouldn't say it's as much as the first episode or maybe the second episode, but I feel like one of the things that sort of Demon Hunt is trying to do here is trying to tell both short stories and long stories and make it so everything can kind of build off each other. And at the same time, it wants to really try to figure out a way to tap into emotional storylines while having someone like Jinya, who's kind of cut off in most ways, being the person who's at the center, else aiding in the story and progression of it. Now, is it perfect? Not whatsoever. But at the same time, because it's trying to navigate the complexities of what demons can be, what they can look like, how they can act, you can get something out of it. Am I going to say this is the best thing ever, as I used to kind of push? Absolutely not. But I do feel like it is a bit of a return to form that makes you realize that this show has so much more to offer than for the last 3 or so episodes. I was starting to think that it wasn't going to anymore, and that maybe it was just an early fluke. But with that said, I have to admit, there was some confusion about a few things when it came to this episode. Like, for example, if Ofu seems to have moved on and everything, why does the Garden of Happiness still exist? Why does some form of her still exist there, which is not like her parents, which seem to be like on a clip of a memory that keeps repeating, but it was actually interacting with Jinya and Natsuko live. That didn't make a lot of sense. And also, as this show tries to build out more about demons, I have to admit I have questions regarding this whole demons deciding to suddenly age up thing. And these aren't necessarily huge questions that are like destroying the show or anything like that, but it's one of those things where the longer we take note of things that are presented to us, the more we want to kind of know the particulars about how does this work and how does that work, even to the point of usually when it comes to people becoming demons, I was under the impression it'd be like a hot soup situation where, after something traumatic happens, you go full demon, you lose your mind, yada yada yada. Yet when it came to the way Ufu presented herself, she lost her home, lost her parents, and that made her into a demon. But I have to admit, I don't fully get why. And of course, it's also the add-on of why didn't she become one of those vengeful demons who kind of went crazy and stuff like that. It's a lot of things that are worth asking, could hopefully get answered, but at the same time doesn't ruin the show whatsoever. But overall, thankfully this episode kind of made a return to form, and while we're kind of still hoping that this wasn't a fluke and maybe this is truly like showing that we just have to have patience so that a storyline can pay off, even if it takes multiple episodes, I want to go back to being optimistic about this show. But I still feel very firm about the idea that we need to move forward in time, show a different location, and not just stay in this area where Jinya still refuses to have proper interactions with his father. And perhaps close that circle, or add some details regarding his childhood with Suzune, which likely at this point needs to have some details filled out that surely Jinya has either blocked out or rewrote in his mental memory history.